Oh, greetings. Welcome back to the Black Pill. We're talking about, Nazis as usual. Today, the issue is if everyone's a Nazi, no one's a Nazi. Um, Part one, grade inflation. Pressure. Pressure from parents, from students, from our own good intentions as college professors, from institutions whose grade marks are kind of low. Um, so I worked for a while. I worked at a big for profit college, junior college, the junior college branch of a major college. And I quit over two things, one of which was they replaced all of the paper writing assignments with word search puzzles. Okay, so there's some pressure from institutions because they're recruiting people who aren't qualified really to go to college, but need the student loan money, and they can't write papers, and so they do word searches instead. All of this is to say, am I capable of grading honestly? Is it possible to grade honestly? And I get no negative feedback for giving people A's. If everyone in my class always got an A, I doubt I'd ever hear anything about that. The more A's that I give away, the better it seems that I'm doing as a professor. The more honestly that I grade papers and tests, the sadder my students are. And the worse my apparent outcomes. And the fewer of my students who go on to do graduate school. And if we're teaching high school, the fewer of those students can make it to college. But there's a reality. There is an objective truth of the matter. Go visit the epistemology series that I've been doing. There is an objective reality. It's hard always to know what that objective reality is, but there is one. And if we're to maintain a pretense that academia is at its heart meritocratic, then grades are a necessary part of that equation. If everyone gets an A, then A's are meaningless. They're worse than meaningless. It corrupts the meaning of A's from other institutions. I might not like grading people like eggs from double A to B, but it's not an entirely arbitrary or meaningless pursuit. My students have to work to earn high marks in an environment in which some schools short the system. Two, Godwin's Law. This is an internet thing, about as old as the internet itself. Initially, Godwin was observing that rhetorical discussions tend to result in the invocation of Hitler as they sort of trudge onward and onward. Reducto ad Hitlerium, I think he says. And that invocation of Hitler tends to be hyperbolic, right? The point of invoking Hitler is to say the worst moral thing on earth. This is like the worst example of the worst moral thing on earth we can find. Threaded discussions were especially vulnerable to this sort of rhetorical trick, but he meant everything happening on the internet at the time. This was 1990 or something. This became a meme and was sometimes even applied as a moderation rule in various chat groups. Any person who invokes Hitler ends the discussion with a concession on their part. Godwin himself still exists. He's resurfaced a few times, increasingly like creating distance between himself and the law that shares his name. That's because if everyone is Hitler, no one is Hitler. People throw Hitler and Nazism around exactly to destroy language so that we can't discuss things reasonably anymore, and the Nazis profit. Godwin's not an expert on history and doesn't really like being involved with any of this. For sure, read his interview with the Washington Post. I'm going to link that for you. Part 3, the Tea Party. The Tea Party started as sort of a grassroots Revolutionary War cosplay kind of thing in about 2009. Forget the origins. They were kind of extremist, but initially basically kind of harmless. It's just people who get together at the local town hall and wear the tricorner hat and stuff like that. The white power coding didn't really start until a bit later. 2009, they were pretty much of a nothing burger, like the Cliven Bundy anti Bureau of Land Management stuff. It wouldn't have amounted to anything except for Fox News. Fox decided to fund and support a bunch of like white power revolution movements in the Obama years. And by fund, I mean provide with a shitload of free airtime. They explicitly hosted and supported the Tea Party with Fox News personalities and venues and free publicity. And that stuff grew up to be the obstructionist Freedom Caucus that won control of the House and Senate as Republicans from the Democrats and made Barack Obama a 6-year lame duck. Fox News explicitly rebranded the Tea Party as the Fox News Tea Party, Glenn Beck and all those guys. So, like, Cliven Bundy turned out to be a huge racist, to no one's actual surprise, and his descendants tried the actual white power revolution, staging it from an Oregon bird sanctuary. There's a long, weird story. And Fox covered all that stuff in a positive light. Like, they were all in on Cliven Bundy until he started saying, and I have another thing to tell you about the black man, like that. They covered these guys like they were freedom fighters instead of actual Nazis. But that's all an aside. And the fact that the Bureau of Land Management and Black Lives Matter share acronyms, I'm sure, is a complete coincidence with nothing to do with anything. I'm absolutely certain that's the case. This far-right white power climate-denying coal is freedom version of the Tea Party with the Koch brothers as their titular heads kind of had a habit of comparing everything to slavery and comparing everything to Nazism. The rallies usually had that picture of Obama with the toothbrush mustache. Twitter at the time was just ablaze with comparisons of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, to Nazism. Simplistic reducing of Nazis to socialists because socialists was in their name. The Nazi Party was officially the National Socialist German Workers' Party. In the same way, like, Republicans aren't racist because Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation and he was a Republican, and never mind all the intervening history, never mind like the 1968 convention, where the Democrats threw out all of the racists from their party, and those racists found home in the Barry Goldwater version of the Republican Party. Part 3, Alec Reary. So I'm going to link you some Alec Reary, and well worth attending to. All of his Gresham College lectures available on the YouTube. Those are fun. Reary is a super specialized academic. I mean, like most of us kind of are anymore. His focus is the British Protestant Reformation. Lately, I've been obsessed with that. His Gresham lectures about martyrs and the political work to which martyred narratives are put. That's really interesting. The origins of American law and the horrors of English civil wars over religion, right? Why is Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution about America making no law about religion? That's where it comes from. And Hitler as a moral guidepost. The thesis is something along these lines. Catholics used to rule the world. Protestants broke up their control. Diversity crept in, including the possibility of atheism and secular government. Jesus became understood in more various ways, less and less an icon of absolute goodness, and more various icons of various ways of being good, as Protestants understood him differently. The church fractured and fractured into smaller and smaller sects, and those sects each understood Jesus differently, and atheists in a different way again. We lost a moral guidepost. Jesus became many icons, meaning different things to different people, or nothing at all to some swaths of the public. Then Hitler arrives, World War II happens, atrocities are committed and remembered. Hitler becomes a kind of negative moral guidepost. Maybe Jesus can't be understood anymore as a moral icon, but Hitler can. This is evil. Evil is what Hitler did, and evil is the people who condoned it. And evil is even the people who went along with it and allowed it to happen. Part 4, probably? The alt-right. Danskin has said all of this. Ian Danskin has said all of this. Way better than I ever really can. I'm not organized enough. The alt-right is a loose federation of interests that have fascism at their heart. They get around the need for central organization. The problem with fascists is they tend to get together and then do something that lines up with their beliefs, but that thing is really horrible and nobody likes it, like taking over the bird sanctuary, and then they're really discredited. We see that they're evil or at least kind of stupid and silly, and then they're discredited. The alt-right movement doesn't have that problem because it's not really a movement. It is ultimately a faceless abstraction like Antifa. We can't ever successfully pin Hitler on them because they aren't a real identifiable organized group. Vuilo denied saying, "When I am weak, I ask you for my freedom because that is according to your principles. When I am strong, I deny your freedom because that is according to my principles." When he didn't say that, he was talking about the Catholic Church. This applies really well to modern Republicans. The Trump wing is using democracy to destroy democracy and appeals to freedom to destroy freedom and appeals to voting integrity to destroy elections. On this particular front, we head back to Godwin's Law. Part 5. Right-wingers use hyperbolic comparisons to Nazis to shut down any reasonable conversation about anything during the Obama years. Now it's the post-Trump years. They might wish to invoke Godwin's Law. You said we couldn't use Nazi to win an argument, so neither can you. It's a rule after all, and rules must be followed. This is a common fascist technique. It's been used by fascists across space, across time, across space-time. Why can rappers say the N-word, but I can't? Dude, bro, why do you want to say the N-word so bad? Racism is just something lefties say when they're losing an argument. Well, that's a great way to appear to win an argument that you are losing. This is using the letter of the law to get around the spirit of the law, and even the Supreme Court in modernity is in on that gag. We're about to lose Roe versus Wade over it. Here's some legal eagle commentary on that matter. So here's the thing. If everyone's a Nazi, no one's a Nazi, even if they are explicitly a Nazi. Stephen Miller. Sorry, I got some fascism caught on my throat right there. It's time to call these people what they are. And what they are is grifters, opportunists, kleptocrats, willing to use white power gangs, literal and figurative Nazis, to consolidate their power. They're fascists. In the end, fascists don't have any ideology but that which is useful to gain and hold power. Scratch a fascist, scratch Mussolini, find a Trump. If everyone's a Nazi, no one's a Nazi. Okay, bye.